afternoon. Wherever my audience is hearing this or coming live to catch a little bit of data science learning this morning or this afternoon or evening for you guys, wherever, depending on geographical location. So I'm very much excited about today's talk. Today's talk is going to cover product side of data science. I thought about this concept, in fact, while I was working on Gym, and I thought data science and the product, how is this come together? If this role is getting really popular today in today's market, then I thought about product data scientists work extremely heavy with uh, the product managers, right? So, and then why not maybe like we can bring the product managers and product data scientists need a heavy analytics work done, doing a lot of the data processing, cleaning, collection, making it ready for analysis. And why not I can invite someone from data analytics field. So that was my basic raw idea, and then I connected with these folks and they agreed. Thank you so much, both Sai and Riya. They are with me today, and we will talk about and give a good presentation for you guys to grab a really good analysis and grip on how product data scientist is put together and how product managers, data scientists, and data analysts can be a magic trio to work and make things happen. So all right, welcome everyone. Let me begin quickly by just giving you our agenda, which is fairly simple. It has been the same agenda I'm trying to stick in for all my career talks. Basically, I will cover brief intro if something happens, with the tool, when we go live and things. We'll give some buffer time. Any time that is saved on this first 10 minutes, it's good. We can utilize that for the end on Q&A. And I always get a lot of questions, and sometimes we cannot cover in 30 minutes. So for me, it's good to get any extra time, right? Then we'll cover the presentation with our coaches. Myself will cover a little bit about product data science. What is it about? Then I will hand it over to Riya. She will cover some stuff on the product managers and how they can utilize the AI in current, uprising wave. What has been the effect on their work culture, and what they can do to best utilize this AI. So not just the hype, but how to utilize on your work, right? So that's something we're going to talk about. Then I have Sai with me, who's going to cover the data analyst side, and he's been a lead data analyst, and he's saying a lot of good contents. If you are not following him, for the SQL, for data analyst, for any analytics related work, I think he's been doing tremendously well, supporting the community. And then we will do the live Q&A after our presentation is over. I'll monitor the live LinkedIn to catch all the questions, and then we will cover that each question one at a time. And if there are questions that we could not cover, and which more than likely might happen, then I usually cover that and post it as a LinkedIn post, so you guys can see it, and any questions we were not able to cover. And then we'll close it out, and that's pretty much it. All right, so let's jump in. Three core areas that we are planning to cover, as I already mentioned. The product data science, it actually involves heavy data analysis and ML techniques. So basically, data scientists will be focused on working how to optimize user experience, how to make data-driven decisions, and all this modeling work, they need kind of support from the product team, right? So it's going to be product manager or product management team associated with that engineering wing on many of the organizations I have seen. And they actually drive the feature, own the feature, and they will kind of plan out how to different milestones about deliverables, things like that. And data analyst or data scientists, they all kind of follow that structure to meet the goals for the customer, right? So that's what is going to happen in a nutshell. And product management, as I already mentioned, they are very, very important piece on this work, because someone has to drive this feature. Someone has to kind of identify the feature first, right? So before even driving it, like what can we do to improve this feature? Or in some cases, they can identify the weaknesses, right? Why our user experience is going down. So there could be a UX design team who doesn't know much about the interaction of the product or how product is being used in the market, and how is the new technologies or other competitors are doing it. So it's all about, like, the product managers has to have this very diverse kind of mindset, right? So to think about these features, and then the data analytics piece, right? So they is very, very major or important component in many organizations. If you are not in a big organization or a small organization setting, you data analyst plus data scientist, they might be combinedly called as product data scientist, and you do analytics work, right? So the reason for me to split today was just to make some clarity in the role, right? So if same role is doing both responsibilities, is good, right? But I just wanted to clarify how it actually differentiates, and they work together in the data side, right? Mostly in the data side, that's their main role. All right, so I will cover data science, and then I'll hand it over. Like, today's goal mostly is to learn from my guest, than myself. I will cover a little bit. So about me, I think most of you guys, if you have attended previous talks or follow me on LinkedIn, you guys probably know I am senior data scientist in Microsoft today. I have worked in other companies like Wells Fargo and in US government, Spaywar. So I started my career as data analyst, as you can see. So that's always going to be an interesting journey. And then I was a prior service member, right? So in US military, I did not do a lot of tech related work, but then I learned quite a bit about a lot of other stuff that I could utilize in my professional career, right? All right. So then the magic trio, like I said before, the data scientist, product managers, and data analyst, right? So as you see in this diagram, right? So data analyst usually says that I will tell you what's going on. So that means they can do some of the the initial analysis work that you need. You have to back up your product managers. Product managers may think that, hey, the user behavior or user train for on particular feature has been going down, right? So for example, the Instagram feed, the news feed, like their train has been going down for the last 1 week or so, or 2 weeks or so, for example, right? So if they have noticed something in the data, it has to be a tight interaction with the data analyst to figure that out, if that one has, if supported by the data, right? So you all of your hypothesis, right? Any hypothesis that you create has to be supported by data, and in that case, data analyst will be very helpful. So we'll take a quick example of a user engagement for a music streaming service. We can take an example, either Spotify, right? Just to make it simple. So they will, for example, the product manager will identify the goal for increasing the user retention, right? So we want to probably create, like, retain more users, or increase our DAUs, MAUs metrics, because that's what ultimately means that the user are sticking with the product, right? And then now this data analyst who's going to measure those KPIs, the KPIs I just mentioned, right? So you have to see the trend, like how is the DAUs for this particular user has been. It has been going down, and it was pretty high before. Then maybe one reason could be the personalized recommendation list is not working fine as we desired. How far along we have come with our recommendation engine, when it was fine-tuned, when it was retrained, and can we consider additional features to make it better? So then comes data scientists, right? So when you have to do this recommendation model, right? So they're going to look at it and they see, okay, I got some insights from data analyst saying that the trend of DAU MAUs are going down for this. They're going to see at the user level, right? Because we're working on a personalized list. And then they kind of fine tune or look into their metrics, whatever evaluation metrics they had been considering for those models. And then if they retrain with a new data set or new features, and they will put in production, right? So putting in the production, then you have to have another measurement cycle just to make sure that, and before you put in a production, there will be experimentation stage, obviously. But after you put in production, you have to have another cycle of measurement to make sure that those metrics are lifting up, right? If you are kind of tackling the problem correctly. All right. So why product data scientist is very unique? In my opinion, there is a data, there is a product, and then if there is a gap, then it does not work as we desired, right? So the bridging that gap between the data and the product is where I think the data scientists come in play, in my opinion, and that's where the product data science actually have its core value, right? So it's playing a crucial role in identifying the insights and anything that data tells us into actionable product features, right? So the actionable product features is very important because if you cannot take action, then obviously you cannot implement it, right? Then you focus on user behavior. So user behavior is extremely important, right? I mostly work in the cybersecurity domain for a long time, but I was a part of fintech for some time. And then I understand how critical it is to know the user behavior, because this is going to change over time. And then it's very tricky. I think you cannot personalize everything. I mean, recommendation engine, okay, that makes sense. But you have, when you're building the application itself, the application has a feature, you go on various tabs to do things. So for example, you have your web application, right? So that is your front face for any of the feature that you have for the product. Then it's almost impossible that you're going to be able to personalize everything for millions of users, right? So you now have a job to how to optimize these features, right? So and behavior change over time, user behavior change over time. That's a tricky part. You have to decide how long you can go on the historical data to train. For example, my test could change over time, right? And it also depends on various factors, right? So very simple example in Amazon, if they look at my trainer buying things may have changed. My test may have changed, right? So I had a baby for some time. They were tiny little babies. I was probably focusing on baby products. If they keep recommending me the baby products for the next few years, it's not going to work out, right? So they need to kind of like see how far they're going to go, right? The most recent one is the highly relevant one. Does your model assign the higher weightage on the most recent things that the user are doing, right? So there's a lot of things. I think user behavior analysis is itself a research area and then very big area of study. Then data-driven decisions. So yeah, on this example, previous example, as we see, imagine if we want to increase our user engagement, then we want to maybe on a weekly basis, we generate a personalized list depending on your mood, right? So you can actually see the weekend mood, the weekday mood of the user, looking at the data, and then you can generate that weekly personalized list, for example, right? That could be one idea to drive that feature. Now, if PM comes with that feature idea, then ultimately data analyst and data scientist has to work together to build that, right? All right. So the current market trend of product data scientist. One thing I have noticed is there has been a lot of roles consolidation going on. That means, increasing demand for product data science is because, like the previous roles like marketing data scientist, growth to market data scientist, or even growth data scientists are usually, kind of rebranded in a way, right? So become product data scientists to make sure that they can track everything under the same holistic view of how everyone is involved in the product lifecycle, right? With data. And a lot of these roles, like if some are very heavily involved on user research or user behavior research that I was saying before, product owners, product managers, growth data scientists, as you see all those top ones, right? They can usually belong to the same bucket of product data scientists. And that's why I think there's a heavy demand and trend in the market today. And the other unique, things that people are trying to do is like, there's also coming up new roles like, I mean, it's not really new. Some companies already had it, like technical product managers, right? So they are coming from engineering background, and then later they kind of convert themselves to become product managers. So usually the title technical product managers makes sense for them because they actually have the technical acumen plus the product knowledge, right? And then every company has realized that we need to have a dedicated team of product focus, so that has been also coming in a rise lately, and that could be another positive trend for the market to have these roles coming in rise. All right, so what are the key areas you should focus on, right? So in my knowledge, what I knew so far, as we discussed, user experience metrics, right, or user behavior metrics, it is extremely important So their click-through rates. There's a ton of metrics like that, right? So how is the daily activeness, So when you talk about KPIs, the KPIs is actually what problem you're tackling, and then what could be the valuable metrics around this problem. First, you have to break down the problem, and then you will know the KPI associated with that product, right? And then or that feature, and then your role is basically improving those KPIs, right? If you are decreasing the downtime or latency, then you're going down, right? So it can go in either index, right? Negative index for some features, positive index for some features, but ultimately you have to understand the KPIs based on the problem and the associated with the product feature. Then A/B testing and experimentation is actually heavily on demand for this type of roles. In the data science roles, as you guys know, most of the data scientist title is split into two categories. One is the product data scientist, and one is mostly ML data scientist or the core ML data scientist. For the core ML data scientist, we do experimentation and A/B testing, but most of our A/B testing is like testing two models, like model A versus model B, right? So it's like doing all the hypothesis testing and same systemic design for experimentation. A/B testing is actually the very well sought out skill for the product data science roles. And then you need to have a lot of soft skills, a little bit heavy than the ML related data scientist into the product data scientist, because there's going to be a little bit more collaboration or stakeholders interaction, right? And product managers interaction. Then other metrics will be mostly related to growth metrics. You have to understand what acquisition look like, what acquisition cost looks like, that whole popular funnel thing, right? For acquisition to growth to retention, like maintaining that consistency on the rate, right? So that's all important and you need to understand. So, all right, with that, I think I am coming into my slide. I will hand it over to Riya. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing my own screen. Okay, fixing it. I'm ready.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, perfect. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session and for coming here to hear from all of us. So this section is going to be all about product management and how product management as a field is developing in the age of AI and with data science. Like, how does it intersect with AI and data science? So I'll start with a little bit about me. I'm currently working as a staff product manager at Intuit. Before this, I was a senior PM at PayPal. Before that, I was a senior PM at Oracle. And then and before that, I was in India. I had not moved to the US back then. I was a head of product at a startup in India. This was all about professional home cleaning. And then before that, I was a software and an Android app developer at Oracle. Education-wise, I have a bachelor's and a master's from the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, and also an MBA from Stanford University, Graduate School of Business. So let's dive right in now. So right now, AI is a buzzword. Right now, a lot of companies are also saying, hey, we are not just hiring product managers, we are hiring AI product managers. But what does that mean? Different companies define it in a different manner, but having spent a lot of time thinking about it, I have zeroed into three things that this intersection actually entails. Number one is using AI for product road mapping. Now, when I say using AI for product road mapping and product strategy, I don't just mean asking Gen AI or asking ChatGPT. No, it actually involves going deep into what actually helps your users and what actually moves the metrics needle for you, and also using your own product intuition. So that's number one. Number two is how to add AI features. So these days, a lot of startups, especially, want to add AI simply because AI is the trend. But that's not the way. if you want to add an AI feature, you actually kind of like have to think about, you actually have to make it value driven. Now, how to do that, I'll explain later on. And then finally, having a clear data strategy, collecting data, ensuring that you're able to use it, and then turning it into something fit for consumption of your own AI model. Before I move forward, I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me and see my screen.
Yeah, should be good.
Okay, perfect. So let's dive right in. So using AI for product strategy. Now here, we are gonna do a case study. So imagine you are a former product manager turned restaurant entrepreneur. It's completely okay if you have never been a PM. Just imagine yourself as a person who's about to start your own restaurant in your location. What you do, you start with a vision. Your vision is in 1 year, you want to have 5 Yelp stars. You want to be one of those top rated restaurants once you start. So, what do? You need a strategy, or as some people would call it, a product strategy. So the first thing that comes to mind is essentially manual research, as in you go to other restaurants in your area, especially the top rated ones, and you observe and try to emulate what they're doing. This is definitely time taking, cumbersome, and uncertain. What's working for some other restaurant may not even work for you. So you can definitely ask ChatGPT to give you a product strategy, but it's right now the way it is right now, what I have observed, and maybe somebody else's experience could be different. So I'm definitely going to acknowledge that. But in my experience at this point of time, it's going to be generic advice that you probably have thought of already if you are a restaurant owner. Let's use the good old traditional AI and also some product intuition. But how do you do that? You start by gathering data. Yelp actually has a public downloadable data set of 6 million restaurants. They're doing it, and this data set, this has been super helpful in terms of creating models that can actually help restaurants themselves. Then, once you have gathered data, then you have to clean it. Now, what does cleaning mean? A lot of times, the data you're going to get is going to have a lot of blank cells or blank rows. So, of course, you have to remove them. But more importantly, a lot of restaurant data that you're going to get is going to be qualitative. A restaurant could be in California or Massachusetts. The state is a qualitative data which cannot be consumed by the mathematical model. So what do you do then? You binarize it. So instead of having one field for state, you now have to have 50 fields. Is California 0 or 1? Is Massachusetts 0 or 1? So converting qualitative data into proper consumable mathematical quantities, that is the second part of cleaning the data. Yes, now one thing that I also have not called out here, but is super, super important, is making sure that you're using that data is legal. As in, you're not using any personally identifiable information, or you're not using any proprietary data. So ensure that the data that you're downloading and using, you're actually allowed to do it. So that is something you have to ensure. Then, of course, you can create a neural network model in Python or R, and then train the model on the data that you have. Based on the neural network and based on the training, what you're going to get is some feature combinations. For example, you might get one combination as ambient lighting is medium and plus live music. This leads to, let's say, a high number of stars. Another combination could be ambient lighting is slightly on the lower side and no live music. That could also, there could be more features in this combination. What you can actually do is note down which combinations of features of restaurants actually are more likely to give you 5 Yelp stars. And then your product chops come into picture. Use your own product intuition. choose the best combination and evaluate trade-offs. And then use your own intuition to create your roadmap. You want to get there in 1 year. So create a roadmap. This is how you can actually create a product strategy using your own product intuition and some good old AI. And hopefully, this would be a winning strategy. The next step in being an AI product manager, sorry, I'm going to also talk about the key takeaways from here. So, what you have to do is, of course, start with a goal and an objective. We started with 5 Yale stars. Then we gather data. Of course, ensure that you can easily use the data as well. Clean the data, make it usable, train the model, and then based on the model, itself, the trained model, gather insights on which feature combinations are actually gonna move the needle. And then use your own intuition to create a roadmap. What you should not do here is jump to asking ChatGPT or other LLMs about it. Right now, LLMs these days are really important. Now, these are really good products, but at this day and age, at least from my experience, they also seem a bit generic. I know they're going to get improved maybe in a few months, but right now, jumping to LLMs to create a roadmap is not the way to go. And also, don't be complacent. The approach that I gave you can also have pitfalls. For example, historical data bias. What has worked in the past may or may not work in future. Now, this changing of trend can be a micro trend or it can be an overall trend as well. So really be cognizant about these changes. Feedback loop bias. For example, let's say your restaurant is in a particular location where people really love Indian restaurants. And the reason why I'm picking Indian restaurants, I'm Indian myself. I love going to. So that feedback loop bias can also derail you. So be careful. Overfitting. Overfitting. So when you're training your model to your data that you gathered, if you overfit, then that could be a problem as well. Now, how to actually not overfit? Now, there are several ways to avoid it. That requires a whole presentation on its own, so I'm not going to get into it, but ensure that you don't overfit. Now, the next step is to add AI features. These days, a lot of startups actually are trying to include AI features into their products, but in adding AI, just for the sake of adding an AI feature on your product, once again, is not the way to go. When you add an AI feature, it has to be value driven. Let's illustrate that with a case study once again. So let's say we are looking at Stay Safe. Now, this is a completely hypothetical home security startup, no relation to any existing company. The VC investing in this company is really excited about AI. So the startup, they add an AI-based system to detect suspicious movement around the house. They did it, and they do it without actually doing any user discovery or user interview. What do you think happened? As a lot of you probably have guessed, the outcome is actually not good. A lot of times, this AI model has a lot of false positives. Cars moving outside, and you get a false alarm. And what also happens as a result is that people start getting desensitized. People start not paying attention to these alarms at all. This AI-based security system is now a complete nuisance. The customers, they did not want an AI feature. They wanted good security. And the company, if they had done discovery or user interviews, they probably would have uncovered some real pain points. And they did not do that. Once again, this is a hypothetical company, but this could be a story for a lot of real companies too. The way to add an AI feature is this. Number one, do the traditional product management exercise. Identify pain points, user interviews, root cause analysis, as in talk to the users and then ask yourself or ask them why. And maybe go 5 levels of whys deep into understanding the root pain points. Then define the think of how you would solve it in a traditional manner. Think of how a human being would solve it. And then ask yourself, Does AI help scale it up? If yes, and if only if the answer is yes, AI is the right solution. But once again, there are caveats. You have to be careful. Data itself can have biases. A lot of times, let's say if you're building a medical product or a medical prediction product, then a lot of times the data that you have available could be skewed toward only one or two ethnic groups. So be careful on the data itself. Ensure that the data that you're using does not have any personally identifiable information. And this goes to the wider legality, like the data that you're using, ensure that you can actually use it from a legal and also from a moral standpoint. And then you cannot escape the usual product management exercise of testing the prototype. You built something. Of course, just because you used AI does not mean that it's definitely going to work. No, you have to then take it to the market, test it out, iterate on it. So that is something you cannot escape from. The last bit is the clear data strategy. Now, we are going to illustrate this by looking at two startups. Number one is in tech health. And number one is in tech health. I'm going to go deep into what this is. This is a hypothetical startup in the healthcare sector, and they decided to build a product which tries to predict patient readmission rates. For a lot of hospitals, how likely is a patient to come back? That's actually really important data. So for this startup, imagine that the customers are hospitals. The customers are not patients. The customers of the startup are hospitals. And these hospitals, they need this data on, or they need such predictions on which patient is more likely to come back than others. So Intech Health decided to build it. The customers are, of course, medium-sized hospitals. Then the startup, they quickly started collecting patient data without any structured data strategy. Straight away, they went to different hospitals, signed some kind of an agreement, started gathering data. Of course, this company, once again, is a hypothetical company. I'm not talking about any real company here, a completely hypothetical example. But still, imagine that they started gathering data without any data strategy. On the other hand, we have Health AI, one more hypothetical startup which also wanted to do the exact same thing. They have medium-sized hospitals as customers, and they realized that predicting patient readmission likelihood is a really huge pain point for these hospitals. But before starting to gather their data from these hospitals, they created a clear, comprehensive data strategy. They identified the specific data needed, standardized the collection process as well. They created a sustainable data pipeline that they have reviewed to be completely legal and also completely morally good. They also ensured data quality, so no blank rows or data that cannot be consumed mathematically by a mathematical model. And they also implemented a robust data governance framework. So what if we start getting corrupt data? There should be someone to come in and take a look at it and take appropriate action. So they implemented a robust data governance framework. Guess the result? As a lot of you probably have guessed, in tech health, they actually started facing a lot of potential lawsuits. Not just them, but also the hospitals who are their customers, simply because they just started gathering whatever data they could, including personally identifiable information. So that was not good. Then a lot of times, because they did not have a proper data governance in place, they also had a lot of biases in the data, leading to biases in predictions. And biases in prediction and unorganized data led to inaccurate predictions leading to really high readmission rates. And when a hospital has a higher readmission rate, then they actually get fined as well. For a lot of these customers of Intech Health, the result was really, really bad. On the other, yeah, so reputational damage for not just the startup, but also the hospitals which are using the startup's product. Again, this is hypothetical. Number two is health AI. They had a clear data strategy with clean and organized data. Their model actually achieved a really high accuracy, which meant that their hospitals, the hospitals that are using health AI, can give proper treatment to the patients with a higher likelihood of readmission. And also, they can give personalized care plans. And overall, the outcome is good. The key components in the AI data strategy and basically creating a clean data strategy, it actually starts with what actually is the first step in product management itself: identify business objectives and product vision. So define a specific business goal, define a product strategy. So in this case, you conduct user interviews, understand the user's pain points, and then identify what you're going to build to move the needle in that business objective, and then use AI to scale. Then, of course, data collection and management, the way we talked about, the way Health AI did their data collection. So having a robust data pipeline, yeah, that's really important. And then data quality, governance, and ethics. Once you get the data, how do you make it consumable by the mathematical model? How do you ensure that there are no biases in the data itself? And then how do you ensure that you're ethically okay and also legally okay using that data? That is something that you have to ensure. That is really important, both ethically and legally. So, of course, biases, you have to take into account privacy as well. Of course, any qualitative data has to be converted to quantitative mathematical data. And then using AI to scale. And then finally, also measuring success. And this is the final step where your product shops would come into the picture, defining your success metrics and then measuring your product against it. Now, for scaling, of course, you have to think about infrastructures. You're running a model on a laptop. Is that scalable? Maybe, maybe not. As you get more and more customers, as you get more and more data, imagine more and more rows on your spreadsheet. You have to then move over to some other computer or some other processor that can actually handle all of it. Then of course you have to keep training your model as well, because a model that was trained years ago may not work now. And then of course your product and AI metrics. Now what I mean by product is any success metric that you define. For example, I want to have, as a product manager, when I'm opening that restaurant that we saw in the beginning, as a PM, I might say, okay, in 1 year, I want to get at least 1,000 customers per day. That's the product metric, the product being my startup. And AI metrics are essentially false positives, false negatives, etc. So there are a set of AI metrics as well that you have to think about. And that's it. With that, I'm going to pass on the mic over to Sai. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm just going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Ria. I think that was a ton of good information. You touched upon the data science, the things that we should kind of be aware when the sprinkle of product on every of those components and strategy you talked. So thanks so much. So let me share the screen again so I can hand it over to.
Thank you, Nirmal and Riya, for sharing your amazing insights and experience on product data science, how we can work together like different people and make impact for the company. So to get started, like I'll give a short intro about myself. I'm Sai Kumar, and currently I work as a lead data analyst at Blue Cross. Prior to that, I did my bachelor's in electrical back in India, and then moved to United States to pursue my master's in data science from UConn. And during my master's, I worked as a data scientist at Lego. And right after my master's, I've started creating content on LinkedIn. It's been a year, and during this past 1 year, I have been featured on Times Square, Favicon, Fox, NBC, and 20 other articles. It's been a great journey learning from like amazing individuals. Like few of them are like Nirmal and Riya for sure. So learning from all these people has been really helpful for my career. I'll be like, now that I have seen how product and how AI can collaborate, I'll tell you how data analytics can be involved in this, and then how we can make impact together. So to get started, yes. So the first thing is like becoming a data analyst. What kind of skills do you require? So it's not just the technical skills that you need to learn, but also a mix of tech and non-tech is what sets you apart from the competition, or like be it interview or be it at work. You want to get promoted fast, like your non-technical skills play an important role more than your technical skills. So first thing is Excel, the most underrated skill, and most people ignore it, but then you might not get questions in your interviews, but then you will use Excel at your work, because sometimes the end report is gonna be in Excel more than your Power BI or Tableau dashboard. So don't ignore Excel. And the next one would be SQL, SQL. Like there are different names all over the internet on how we call it, but same thing again. It's the other opposite version of Excel. You might not use SQL at work, but you will be asked questions on SQL during your interviews, be it theoretical, practical, or coding interviews. So make sure to learn it, like practice every day for 2 to 3 questions. You don't have to be an expert, but then try to get started, like be at beginner level, learn the theory and everything, and then move on to practicing few questions, and then reading blogs, and like following few creators on LinkedIn, attending events. Like all these things would, like connecting with people who has been in industry for decades or like a number of years. Learning from their experience will may move you from intermediate level to advanced level. And now that you have cleaned the data in SQL, and then you have done some basic analysis in Excel, it's time to visualize it and make a report or dashboard on Tableau and Power BI. So here's where data analysts come into picture, like analyzing different trends and patterns in the data, and creating interactive reports and make data-driven decisions. So all these things make it easier to communicate findings to the stakeholder and support the decision making. And coming to cloud. So right now, like most of the companies, be it startups or big tech, they use cloud because it's easy and it's efficient, secure, like cost effective. So make sure to learn one of these skills for sure, like be it Azure, AWS, or GCP. Again, it doesn't have to be all of them, but the skills are transferable. Like if you learn one, you could learn other in like very less time. And coming to non-technical skills, so they're very important too. It's not just technical skills, because even during your interviews or at work, you need to communicate your insights or findings or anything to your stakeholders. So if that's not happening, that might be a problem. So these are the few things that you need to focus on: problem solving, critical thinking, communication, storytelling. So like maybe finding root cause analysis, like say your problem solving skill might be like, you see that there's a drop in the metric, so you want to dig deeper into your transaction data or any data, and then find patterns and see where the drop is happening, like if it's sudden or if it's gradual. So you want to find out reasons and see what you can do, like maybe recommend a marketing strategy. So, and coming to critical thinking, so if you are reviewing your customer satisfaction survey, you need to assess whether the sample size is representative, and then consider biases in the data, so before drawing your conclusions. So that's where your critical thinking skills come in. And communication, it's the key. So all these things that you do are technical, but then if a non-technical person can't understand what you're trying to convey, it might be of no use. So you need to communicate clearly. Your non-technical stakeholders need to understand the insights and or the work that you have done. What is that you have found from data? What is that you can do from the insights that you have found? Nirmal, can you move to next slide? Yep. So day in the life of a data analyst. So it can vary from small scale company to mid scale to a big tech company. So as a general, so it starts with a scrum call with your team members, probably your managers, data scientists, and product teams. So we'll be talking about like there'll be a sync meeting with all of these people, discussing project progress, priorities, like if you have any roadblocks, especially if you're working on a product launch or sprint cycle. You will get on a call and discuss, okay, what's happening with each team member, and then get updates, and then if you need any help, you get it done. And then you go and like gathering and data cleaning. So it takes up most of our time. Like you don't know, you might get data from different databases, APIs, or websites, and finding where the data is the toughest part, and then cleaning it is the second toughest part. So these both take up around 60 to 70% of your time. And once you are done with that, like you'll be making analysis and visualization, like initial analysis, like descriptive, inferential, and you'll be move on to making reports and dashboards, and you'll be having meetings with your team members again. Let's say you found a drop, or you found that the sales is increasing. Why is it increasing? Why is it decreasing? And you discuss with your teammates or your stakeholders and see what decisions that you can make to generate more revenue or increase the user engagement depending on the project that you're working. Next slide. Yep. So coming to like any data role, there are a lot of myths and a lot of truths that we see on internet or everywhere. So the first thing is like that you need a master's or PhD degree to get into data. I don't think that's true unless you want to move to another country on a visa. You don't need a master's or PhD, but then you'll always have a edge over others if you have one. But then it's not like end of the world. Like to get into data, you need a master's or PhD. That's completely wrong. So the next myth would be like data analysts just create dashboards, data scientists just build models. So no, it's not that. Like data gathering and data cleaning takes up around 70% of our time, like gathering requirements, finding where the data is, like having multiple calls with other team members or stakeholders on discussing methods like to drop the data or impute with something, or should we gather more data to make decisions or like move further. And the next thing is no programming required. That's partially true. Like maybe a few roles require only Excel or Google Sheets. Then you don't might not need programming. But then in Excel, you might have to use Power Query, and then VBA you might have to code. So programming is required, especially if you are getting into mid or senior levels. You need SQL knowledge for sure. So program is required. And the last one would be only technical skills are enough. No, as we have discussed, technical skills and non-technical skills, the combination is the best thing that you can have. So like coming to the truths, yeah, same thing again. Skills, experience, and other factors are important more than your degree. And a combination of technical and non-technical skills are required to stand out in this competitive market. Like we have seen, the market isn't it a good state. So to stand out, you need to have good portfolio, online presence, interview skills, whatnot, everything. So on that note, moving on to interview tips. So first thing would be preparing your technical toolkit. Like depending on the role that you applied, you might have to learn Excel, SQL, machine learning, deep learning, NLP, or anything that required for the job description. Like go through the job description, prepare for it like from top to bottom, and reviewing your projects or experience that you put on your resume. So a lot of times like people don't prepare what's on their resume, and then when you get asked the question based on what's in your resume, you go blank. So that's a red flag. So and preparing technical and behavioral questions. So a lot of times you get technical questions and also behavioral questions. Sometimes you get asked a combination of both. And storytelling. So as we discussed before, storytelling is very important. So you want to strategize your storytelling, like starting from insights and what are the patterns that you have found and what are the recommendations that you are going to give to your stakeholders that generates revenue or increases user engagement or any metric that you are focusing on right now in your product. The next thing would be practice SQL or Python coding. So most of the startups or like mid-level or big tech, you do have these coding rounds. So make sure to practice 1 or 2 questions every day. Like you don't have to spend 5-6 hours every day, but then 30 minutes to 1 hour should consistently should do over a certain period of time. And next thing that you can expect is take-home assessments. So make sure to like take few mock interviews, and also like mock interviews are the best thing to build your confidence and structure your answers. So you don't have to ramble during your interviews, and you know what to expect, and then you know how to answer. You need to understand the interviewer's perspective and link your like answers to the job description directly. So you want to tell what they want to hear more than what you know. So that's something you learn during your mock interviews. And the last thing but not the least, so willingness to learn, or yeah, like you should be open to learn. Like say you know Tableau, but then the interviewer might want, the project might require Power BI requirement. So you need to be open to learn. Like you don't want to stick to Tableau, or you might lose the opportunity. So show the openness to learn new skills or like a new tool and a new environment. So that's something that you need to show during your interviews. If you don't know something, accept it and show that you are open to learn. So yeah, the last slide would be interviews do's and don'ts. So first thing is research the company. Most people when they join the interview, they don't research the company, so they just join. And then when the recruiter or hiring manager asks like, do you know about the company or like anything? So like most people like they don't have an answer. So you don't want to be in that position. You want to do your research about like their mission, what are their recent achievements, or like what are their recent projects, what are they have successful, like if they have released any paper recently, you want to go through all of them and then show that you have done your homework, and then you're truly genuinely interested in the company. And the next thing would be internal net, camera, microphone. Like these are the basic things that you need to check. And at the end of every interview, you get this question: do you have any questions? If you say no, that's a red flag. So you need to have questions because you're going to join the company if you get selected. So you need to know their work culture or the projects that you're working, the tools, and then what has been their success rate, or like, how is your future gonna look like maybe 2 years down the line. Where would you see yourself? Questionnaire depending on the round, like a recruiter round, hiring manager, technical, executive round. So you need to prepare different set of questions to ask them. And the last few things would be thank you email. Once the interview is done, make sure to send a thank you email with your learnings, what you have discussed, and then what you can offer for the company or the position. And follow up, like once you send a thank you email, if you aren't getting a reply after 2 to 3 days or like any time frame that you have in mind, don't forget to follow up. So that's a very important skill to the don'ts would be like, yeah, if you don't know the answer, give it up, like giving up in the first try and saying like I don't know. Like maybe you could take a different route and tell them what you know, maybe a similar answer, or like showing a openness to willingness to learn, as we discussed before. And showing up late to interviews, that's a big red flag. So make sure to join 5 minutes or 10 minutes early to check your connections and everything, and everything is good. Be rude to anyone in interview process. Yeah, that's something that's that's a big red flag, because everyone wants to hire a person who can mingle with their teammates, their culture and everything. So cultural fit is something that every company or every team wants to have. And interrupt the interviewer, like let them complete what they're trying to say, and then sort out all the thoughts. And then once the interviewer is done talking, you can take up the chance and ask the questions or like answer. So do not try to interrupt the interviewer unless it's required. And last thing is, like, you get this question for sure, like why are you looking for a new opportunity? So don't say anything negative about your previous employer. Show that you're open to learn, that you want to grow in your career, or like your learning has been hit the ceiling or something like that. So never talk negatively about your previous employers, but then show what you are looking in your future employer. So that's a way to answer the question. And I think that's it. Thank you for joining us. And let's open Q&A right now.
Yeah, so folks, first of all, I do apologize the technical glitch or something. I have no clue why the event page on the LinkedIn was saying the event is still not live. We were live both in my YouTube channel and the LinkedIn page. So it was definitely a little weird when I start seeing the messages, and thanks Sai for catching that on the fly. But what I'm gonna do is, like all the different live sessions, I'm gonna stitch it together. There will be a recording I'll share afterwards, so everyone will have a complete video from the start to the end without missing a bit, right? So if you missed some of it, and you can actually see in my profile, it shows they were previously live, and it's gonna show maybe snippet of multiple videos. But yeah, as I said, I will definitely put all together and share it on my YouTube and make it public. So now, because of that, I think we did not get to collect many questions, as people were just trying to figure out what's going on. So, and that's okay. I mean, we basically learn as we go. Every episode I do have something, so it's nothing new. But yeah, thanks for bearing with us. So what I will do is, if you guys are still live and if you have questions, you can drop it in comments. We have a few more minutes. We can take a few questions for sure. And as I said, I think I'll definitely make sure that everyone that I invited will get a notification about the full recording. Yeah, so who one has a question? What can I say in the thank you email after the interview? Okay. Yeah, I will take it, and then I'll, ask the other coaches to add if they have something to add. What I usually do is within the 24 hours is the rule of thumb, right? So, and it's not mandatory, but I usually do on every of my interviews. The way I do is, it's actually benefit myself. After every interview, if you ask me after 5 minutes or 10 minutes of interview happening, maybe I will have some of the constructive feedback from myself as well, how it go, which section I did well versus which section I couldn't cover well. If you ask me after 2 days, I'll forget myself what happened in the interview, right? So it's always a good idea and good practice. I tell everyone that, hey, take notes right after the interview, like what areas you did well, not, you will not receive any feedbacks from the employer or recruiters, right? Because it's their legally bound cause. They want every rejection you get, there's no feedback. So it also helps for your own feedback as well, on areas you can improve. So that's one practice I do. However, that same notes will be extremely valuable when you write the thank you email as well. So you say that, hey, thank you for exciting interview sessions and things that we covered. These are the topics we covered. And I was happy to learn about these new topics, new things. And if conversation was brought up about their team structure or something, and if you have a last pending question that you're not able to ask, that you can add out as well. Basically, couple of the topics you pick where you feel like you were not able to explain or express yourself, then you can add 1 or 2 sentences on that. And that way you are also sending the thank you email, as well as you were covering a couple of the areas that you missed, you felt like you missed it, right? So it kind of give you advantage over that point. And most of the times, interviewers themselves don't share the contact information. So you'll be sending the thank you email to the recruiter that you have been connecting. So you just write an email to recruiter that, hey, please send the thank you email for this interviewer. And then just divide the section on your email body. This is the content for your interviewer, right? And they will pass it along. Yeah, I've been doing it. Every interview I have done, I think I usually do it. That's a good practice. And sometimes it just shows that you are extremely interested in the role because you took a time to follow up, right? So yeah, I will let other coaches add if there's anything that I missed.
I was waiting for Sai to chime in, but I'm also going to share what I do as well. Thank you so much, Nirmal. That was a great insight in terms of recording, like thinking about what went well. What I also do, and every single time I've interviewed, a lot of times immediately after the interview, you have the discussion in mind already. So when you're emailing the hiring manager, it's actually kind of like good to maybe think about the highlights of the interview, like, hey, this is what we discussed, and this is what it made me feel, or this is what I learned, and I'm looking forward to working more on this. That basically signals not only just the interest, but also listening capability. So that is something I've done myself in the past, but I'm going to be taking Nirmal's advice as well, because that's really, really good. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks for chiming in. Sai, you have anything to add?
Thank you, email. Like, yeah, I think you guys have covered like most of it. So one thing is that what you have liked in that culture. If you were hired, that's what we have discussed, and then you guys make money or like save money, or like how I can help you with my technical skills and non-technical skills. So I usually go an extra mile, generally, and make a slide of what I can bring on the plate and then attach it to the thank you email too.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. And then one of the point that Sai mentioned on his presentation was about, like how you should ask the questions at the end of interviews. And that is very important, actually. I will suggest folks to, like come up with really, really good questions that about how can you tie exactly to that role, your goals in a short term, expectation for the role. In many areas you can cover, like what are the tool stacks they're using. Sometimes if they are using completely new tool stack and the interviewer mention it, you can also start prepping or learning a little bit about it. So, there are a lot of things, and you should not say, A, I don't have any questions, or B, you should not be kind of repeating the same common questions, like, there's like some it shows that you haven't done your own due diligence, right? So just be creative when you ask questions. That is your opportunity to learn about the role, team, and they are always happy to answer, so. All right, so the next question I have in here is about how to learn SQL and Python for someone like data analyst role. I think for the SQL, you should follow Sai on LinkedIn. That's one thing. He actually shares a lot of good SQL contents, questions being asked in like a real companies, how to tackle it, how to logically reason it. So, I have a big kudos for him to cover SQL contents on LinkedIn. So I think he's going to be a perfectly right person to follow contents and learn. He also shared a lot of the toolings. There are many tools. If you ask like one or two things, it's hard this stage. But you should pick your which one will be better, right? So, and there are YouTube videos. Maybe some of them have a really good playlist that you can actually sit down and finish watching in a sequence. There are websites like Data Lemur, Strata Sketch is what I used to use it. It actually built by my friend of mine. I love their site. There's a lot of real world questions being asked in companies, and there are many other too. I think Sai can speak on that more than me, so I'll hand it over to him.
Thank you, Nirmal. Thank you for your words. Yeah. For me, what has helped the most is like getting my basics correct first. So taking a course, be it free or paid, or it can be your university course or anything. Get your
Mhm.
basics correct and then start practicing. So that's how you learn and then you develop. So start with 1 to 2 questions per day. That's okay. And then spend 20 minutes per day. That's fine. But then with time, but make sure that you're consistent. So 1 to 2 questions every day for 3 to 4 months, you should be in intermediate to advanced level. Start with easy and then move on to medium. Maybe every day, just so that you remember your basics. One easy, one medium, one hard. That's what I do even today. So one easy, one medium, one intermediate question every day for SQL and Python. So it takes 1 to 2 hours, but then it's like you never know where your next opportunity lies. So you want to be ready when you get that.
Right. Yeah, so the coding, like it's not when you are facing interviews, and that's something that I got it wrong too. Like I always start prepping at the last minute, right? And I have a week or two to prepare, and then I just overload myself, right? Doing 1 to 2 questions, like I said, a day helps you. You never know when you're gonna get opportunity. Sometimes you get reached out by recruiters of the company that you wanted to work for, and even you are kind of like happy and settle in the current role, you should always be looking for your own growth, right? So yeah, interview practice is just like getting workout, right? So you're not going to wait until summer to get that summer body. You have to put your time from before. So all right, so the Python one is I also start sharing some contents on Python learning. So I started from basics, right? So what are the basic websites, tools you can, there's really, I shared this link in the past. I will share it again in LinkedIn, but free code camp, right? So that they actually make some long videos, but you don't have to finish everything on one go, right? And you can just where you paused, because automatically you have to pause it for you once you stop the video, so you can always recontinue. And then it has actually a really good Python video that I shared in the past. And for me, it's more about watching videos, or it's learning from the book. I mean, it's good for the knowledge building aspect, but Python, you have to work. You have to put your fingers on the keyboard. There's no other alternative to learn, right? These days, it's very easy. Google Colab, right? You can just go and start. Like, it's not like when I learned the Python, I have to set up my own environment in a local device, like set up in Anaconda, stuff like that. And then there's package dependencies, version dependencies. Those days are gone, right? So you just can go in the browser and then start learning right away. So I think this is great. So you have to do some hands-on for sure. The next question is effective methodology to help my improve speaking English for professional. Oh yeah, I think this is something that you can probably like volunteer yourself to do some presentation in the work, or even outside of work. One thing is, it kind of sometimes needs courage to break out of your own kind of personal bubble, that you can start sharing content on LinkedIn or anywhere with short videos. Before that, you do a little bit of work on how to prepare presentation, is communication styles, right? All of us, mostly every one of our coaches here, myself, I mean, English was never my first language, right? And it is sometimes hard, but it will build up with time. So one thing I suggest to build communication skills is just sometimes you just do your dry run yourself. I mean, it sounds kind of like cliche, but it works. You just open up your camera and everything, and then start talking. You feel a little bit more confident, and then every presentation, once you do the dry run, and then you can, like I said, you can volunteer yourself within your team that, hey, this is the topic I want to present this week. You start from the small group, go in the bigger group. As you start presenting in the bigger group, your confidence kind of build that way. So the other question I have, I'm currently working in product engineering with heavy data engineering and analysis component. I would like to get started with the big data technology. What would be a good way to start? Okay, so I'll take a first step. The big data, I think there's one answer, Spark, right? It used to be kind of like Hadoop, RDD. That's how the thing started for the big data, how the data is sorted, how the data is kept in the memory, and how we utilize to process it. Many companies you work, if you go in the enterprise or big scale companies, you're gonna end up working with the big data, right? And at some point of time, maybe pandas will not be enough. Panda won't be able to scale, right? So you need to put some time and effort to learn another alternative tool. And this is where once you already know the Python, learning the PySpark is very easy. I have actually started learning PySpark series myself on my LinkedIn. So, but the thing is, this week has been really hectic. So I usually post it on a weekly basis. I'm planning to do 10 chapters. I already covered 6 chapters so far. So that will give a really good head start. And then I'm sharing the notebook that I prepared. So yeah, PySpark is something that you can pick it up. All right, so that was the last question I have. And then thanks everybody who has participated today. And so Sai, can you turn on the video for 1 minute maybe, or I'll take a snapshot really quick for us. I know you have a internet issue, so whenever you guys ready, I'll take one screenshot really quick. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, I'm really sorry about what happened on the live event thing. Actually, maybe it's coming from my third-party website and it went live. It's already had option for LinkedIn and YouTube channels, so it was already streaming, but the event, it didn't start. So I don't know. There could be a connection of how LinkedIn says that the event was live from the other third-party apps. I'll figure that out. Every week, every session has been a learning session for me from the technical side, and as long as we learn for next session to do it a little bit better, that's what I care for. And I will make sure I'll send the videos for everyone, at least teaching everything like I promised before. And who had a final question? Let me see if I can cover it quickly. Could you recommend me some sources? Yeah, so please connect me on the LinkedIn. I'll share some sources for the ML projects and stuff. I do have some ideas of running the projects. I'm planning to run one project a month, and so I have one project coming up, so we can chat. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone, all the best.